Hello, this is Matthew Chan, and I want to welcome you to the very special edition of the Eli Update. I mean, Robert Kasankis and I, to some of you, you know him as Buddha Pie, we did a special update yesterday, and here we are with yet another special update. And this time around, I have with me April Brown. She's a charity auctioneer based in the Seattle area. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And April and I have been in communication for the better part of a week, and we've gotten to know each other and each other's stories. And I am happy to say that we have mutually agreed to come together and to discuss this. You know, we're not hiding behind anonymous names. We're not hiding about anonymous email accounts and all that stuff. So welcome to the show, April.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me today.
Well, why don't you give a little recap to the Eli audience? I know a lot of your readers have heard this story before, but why don't you give a recap to our audience and let them know what it is that you're doing and what this has been all about for you?
Well, my story is very, very simple. One of my clients sent me a poem, and I copied and pasted the poem into a blog. The blog was up for just a few days, and then I took it down, literally forgot about it. In October of last year, 2011, I got an email letter, legal-looking letter from John W. Jolin. Mm-hmm. And so it reminded me of one of those Nigerian bank scandal letters, so I pretty much just ignored it. Then I got another one, and I called Linda Ellis, looked her up, called her, no response, sent her email, no response. Then I got another one. So these were all about 30 days apart. Then in January, I was out of the country, and when I returned, here was another very short few sentences saying, if you don't settle with this within the next 10 days, we're going to pursue you in federal court for full damages. And so then I thought, this is really a scam. I'm going to expose it as a scam, thinking it was like the Nigerian banking scandal, right? And so I put out a press release. I guess that's the best way to say it. I wrote up a pretty basic press release, put it on freepressrelease.com, highlight it with an extra $1, and within hours of that going up, I started getting phone calls. And the phone calls that I got were these really, really sad stories. People were afraid. I guess I should just tell you a couple of those calls, because this is what really lit a fire under me. Okay. I got a call from this preacher. He has an online kind of church, and he put the poem in his sermon, and he started getting these letters. Well, it scared him pretty bad. He took everything down offline. He basically went underground, he told me, and he was almost weeping because he was so hurt by the fact that he did this really good thing, and now he's in all this trouble. I asked him how much she asked from him, and he said he never got a hard figure out of her, but she knew he only had $250 in his account. And he uses his money to feed homeless people. Mm-hmm. So that's what he does with his money. So he wasn't about to give it to her, but he was the first person to really join with me on this issue. And so only behind the scenes, because again, he's kind of in hiding. Then the next call I got was from this guy he was the uncle of a young lady who had been bucked off of a horse and killed. And he put the poem, someone in his family put it in their funeral program, then he posted it on a family blog. And his words were, this was a blog that nobody could see, April. It was a family blog, and somehow they found it. And she sent him letters. He never called me back, so I don't really know where that went for him, if he's underground or if he's still fighting with her. I really don't have any idea. And then I heard from a woman who had just buried her child, and this woman had been asked the same thing, would she pay? She claims she paid her, so I don't know. But she was pretty upset, crying. I asked her, I said to her, it seems like you're as upset as if your child had just died. And I said, forgive me, I know that sounds a little insensitive. And she said, well, you know what? It's like getting kicked when you're down. And that's the truth for many people that have posted this poem. They didn't post it like I did. I just copied, pasted, forgot about it. They were actually in some sort of crisis and felt enriched, I guess you could say, by sharing that poem, where I just posted. I didn't even really give it any thought the way I did it. Now, since that time, I've posted more press releases, and as a result, I flushed out more people. But with that first press release is when I flushed out Linda Ellis. And she came out of her hole like a badger on fire. She did. And her very first email to me was in these big capped red letters. Oh my God, Miss Brown, post this too. She was just like on fire and enraged that I dared send out a press release. And that began the battle between her and I. That's where it became personal.
I have some questions here for you. Going back to the press release, you said that when you released it, you got some responses very quickly. Now, I find that sort of peculiar, to be honest with you. Now, why do you think the response is so quick? Are you saying that they were doing online research, or what is it that you're getting at when you say they respond? Because, I sort of know what you're saying. You put out the information, and people eventually come across it. But the way you're telling the story, it makes it sound like bang. It was just like it happened. So it's what does that mean? Can you explain why you think they responded so quickly?
Well, they did apparently the same thing I did. When I first got involved with this, I went online looking for information, and I could not find anything on this John Jolin, nothing. And I went online looking for information on Linda Ellis, and I just found her poem everywhere, and then one case that when I tried to do the copyright research and all that sort of thing. But there really wasn't any information out there, and I honestly think that press release, people have been searching just like I was. Probably, who knows? I don't know how many people she's involved with, but let's just say just a dozen people are searching. When you hit on something that has a real phone number with a real person, then my information was there too, so they could go to my website. They knew I was a legitimate person, and they called my phone number and talked to a real person. So I think that's the difference, where when I first got my letters, no one called me back. And I wasn't going to respond to John Jolin because I thought the guy was a thug and a fake. So I didn't respond to him. I went to Linda Ellis, and she never contacted me back. And my guess is her process is to leave it in Jolin's hands until he can do nothing else with it. So I guess I must have been the first person to ever post anything.
Well, I have a theory on why she didn't get back to you. You have to, I've been monitoring the extortion letter business. I call it the extortion letter business, which is sort of the term that people use now. And I think, it's fundamentally not very fun. So obviously she didn't want to feel like she wanted to talk to you. You were probably like one of many people. And she probably didn't want to hear it.
I would agree with that.
But obviously, she came out of hiding because you did something that no one else had ever done before. Now,
well, I wasn't really. I've never really been intimidated or fearful because it still, in my mind, makes no sense. To me, this still is. To share a poem and then have the author accuse you of the things she's accused me of, from lying, stealing, theft, every word she can use that has to do with stealing, stolen, theft, every form of that. Yeah. She's called me. And so, I kind of feel the same, a little bit of the gut shot. I posted that thinking it was just a nice little sweet poem, on basically an inactive blog. And now I'm dealing with this kind of venom. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. And it still doesn't fit to me.
Right. Now, at what point, you may have already answered this, and maybe I just didn't hear it, at what point did this really become, I guess, personal for you? I know you heard the stories from other people. It impacted other people. What made it click for you to say, you know what, I got to do something about it? I mean, because it sounds on the outside, it looks like two women going at it. So
yeah, and she actually put that in several of her emails, like this was a cat fight, and I'm insulted by that because I'll fight with you just as hard as I fight with her. Let me tell you.
I believe you. I believe you.
It's really sad that it's kind of in her mind even like that, because the fact is, it has nothing to do with me personally, because it's so simple. I copied, pasted, and posted a poem. Now, that to me, if it had value, real value, it'd be easy to figure out.
Nope.
What this poem's even worth. No idea. Or even what she says it's worth. I still have no idea. But what happened with her is, for me, it became personal with that first attack in the email, and then the threats of not just what John Jolin said, but she actually threatened to write my husband's employer, and then she wrote my husband's employer. My husband's in the media, but Jiminy Crickets, he's a sports broadcaster. It's not like he's a hard news reporter, I have no idea why she thought that was an effective thing to do. So when she did that, then I felt like the gloves were off. That was such a rude thing to do. And then actually a week later wrote the chairman of the board of Bonneville Corporation and did the same exact thing. And of course, my husband's worked for that corporation for over 30 years. So obviously they send us the stuff and they think it's humorous, but just say, I don't know what's going on, but it's strange. So they just make us aware. But those two things were pretty bad. The Google ads that she took out that was a new low.
I've never heard that before. I mean, going online to talk about somebody is fairly commonplace, but the Google ads thing, I have to tell you, I would have never thought of it. I would have never thought of it.
Me either. And actually, I didn't even know they were up. But when she does something, she likes to send it to me and then twist the knife in her mind. That's what she thinks. Like it's a neener kind of a thing. That's what it is. It's really just neener. Look what I just did. It's kind of like that. So she let me know all 3 times that she did it, and it actually had my company's name and my name in the ad. And then when you click through, it clicks to a page very similar to what she currently has up, claiming that I have sexually explicit videos, that I'm a thief, and I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a little bit out of the porn industry. I mean, I don't know too many people who want to videotape an old broad like me, but the fact is, she just has one sort of scandalous thing after another that she wants me to see, which that's pretty strange in my opinion. But she did 3 of those, and the AdWords she bought were Charity Auction World, my company, and April Brown. She bought those AdWords. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty clever.
Well, I have the benefit of actually, obviously speaking with you quite a bit, and our audience members are coming a little bit cold. So I'm going to sort of lead you on a different path here.
Okay.
Tell our audience about the traditional victims of this extortion scheme, as I call it. What kind of people are they? What kind of organizations are these? What kind of people are we dealing with?
Well, I think the first common denominator is it's mostly women who share. Pinterest, it's all about women. All these sharing sites are really about women. Women share other women's successes and ideas, and we've been trained to do that, and that's what we do. We're the ones who buy the greeting cards, so we're the ones who, are all involved in this inspirational movement. I think more women, if you went to a conference of an inspirational movement of any kind, it'd be mostly women. So that's the first common denominator. The second one is nonprofits with insurance. If you're a nonprofit organization and they discover that you have insurance and you've posted that poem in any form, you're basically going to get the full force of what they dish out. If you're an organization with chapters, many chapters, they will hit you with the idea that you're going to have to pay $30,000 per chapter because the newsletter is shared through all the chapters.
Wow.
Those are big. The next one I would say is schools, and anything to do with schools that have newsletters or plays or programs, because those are also insured entities, and they are very fearful of a huge lawsuit, so they also pay off. Then religious organizations, oh my gosh, I really feel for the religious organizations. Now, just so you know, this information is widely available on the internet. They won't talk to you when you contact them, but that information's out there. You can find these people. Synagogues, lots of Baptist churches, lots of Baptists. They seem to like this poem, and they preach it a lot. So the Baptists have been hit pretty hard. Also, people in grief. Now, this issue right here is pretty broad. Typically how it happens is someone posts the poem in a funeral program. The funeral program is put together by the families, and it's passed out within the funeral home. Maybe the funeral home doesn't supply it, just the families do. Someone finds this poem and then builds sort of a commemorative website, or they put it on one of those commemorative funeral sites where you talk about the deceased, any of that. Then there's several people they go for. They'll go after the person who put it in the printed commemorative program, the person who posted it on the blog, and the funeral home. And if it ends up on a website, like a hosted website of commemorative bereavement poems, those people. So that's like a 4 whammy there off of just one person just putting this in the funeral program. So that's your basic categories. I don't know how I ended up in it, except that there's other people that have put it on the same way I have.
Well, it's sort of, when you say they, are you talking about John Jolin, or who are you talking about, or you're not sure?
I'm not really see, until I read your posting about John Jolin, I always thought John Jolin was Linda Ellis because they write almost identically. They both kind of have come out with, "You're guilty, you shameful piece of crap. How dare you rip me off? You are the worst scum on earth. You better pay or we're going to tell everybody and we're going to come after you in federal court." They both, if it's 2 different people, they both write exactly the same. I think also there might be a family member that's writing some of this stuff. But it's all pretty consistent in the emails. I'm going by emails and comments, because I've gotten a tremendous amount, over 100 emails from her, and then the comments that she makes on my YouTube and the comments that she used to make on my blog, I've blocked her now so she can't. But those comments were almost all identical in the way they'd be signed by different people with the same IP address. So you tell me, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 people or just her.
Well, this is sort of an ongoing thing. I took the information you told me, and like I said in my last recording, it took me a while to sort of sort through, and I wanted to separate what was opinion versus fact. And it's sort of like pieces of the puzzle. You do digging and digging, and you try to correlate the information. So I'm reasonably certain that John Jolin does exist. I have a lot of information on him. I'm not going to say on camera where I got it from.
Okay.
But, I'll tell you when we get off camera. But it's pretty good information. I've got the photos, and I'm reasonably certain it's him. That's what I've come up so far. Linda, obviously, is part of this. There may be some other parties, but I know there was an attorney that she worked with. I think, what was it? Wilmer Savage?
Tim.
I forget.
Yeah, Wilcox Savage.
Oh, that's right.
Wilcox Savage, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's the extent of what I know, reasonably know. But I guess that will be, I guess you can say, part of our ongoing investigation as we uncover this.
I want to mention one more thing, Matthew,
sure.
is if anyone questions whether or not this is for real, I've screen captured everything. So I don't have all the screen captures up, but I've screen captured all the comments, all the emails. They're real. I haven't changed any data. I haven't rewritten anything. Everything's exactly as I received it from them. And it's on my website, aprilbrown.com, under Beware Copyright Trolls. And you can go see this for yourself if you question for 1 minute that this person is doing what we say she's doing, and if these incidents actually occurred, because they did.
Okay.
The evidence is there.
Now, you have also given me permission to take whatever information you have and,
yes,
I guess, disseminate it. So that might be helpful. And
you can do that anything you want.
Okay. Well, obviously, you started all this, and I want to be careful to, not step on your toes or take credit for something I didn't do. So there's some new information we found, of course, but it's built on top of whatever you've done. Now, how many victims have come out to you? Do you have a number? You had like a chart of people and these entities. How did you verify this, in fact, is an accurate list? That was one of my burning questions.
Okay, so what they do when you pay them off is you have to put up a notice on your website telling that you used the poem without permission and to direct people to their URL. So one of the people that contacted me early on taught me how to do that. So I found a lot. I gave up after a while because you're talking. In one evening, I found about 45 in one evening. But
are you serious? What do we search on?
No.
What do we search on?
You put in the, I'll send you the link to it. You put in something about, I posted the dash without permission from the author, something like that. I'll send it to you, or we'll put it up on the forum so people can search the millions of pages that come up, because it goes tons of pages come up.
That is wild, because, most of the time in these extortion letter settlements, normally the people aren't supposed to speak about it. It's just the problem is solved, the compensation happens, and everybody goes on their way like it never existed. I find it very interesting that part of her settlement is to leave that trail. So that's actually pretty nice for us. I'm thinking that's pretty stupid.
It's great. It's great but here's the other thing. That list that you see, one of the guys working in the background that's paid. See, I have these people working with me that have already paid, so they're really mad. So the only thing they can do is help me now, because it's too late for them. So I have one guy that called every single person on that list. Mm-hmm. And by the time he got to the end of the list, there was only a handful of people that would talk to him. But this group of people is actually looking into the idea of some sort of class action lawsuit for threats and intimidation, which I'm not sure it's legal to do that sort of thing, but this is how fired up they are.
Well,
and they found some people from that list that are interested in going that direction. So, I don't know, maybe one day you can speak to that.
Well, I can speak to it right now. And because that subject often comes up on our forums regarding this. And technically speaking, what they're doing is not illegal. I mean, if there's an alleged infringement, they do have a right to make a notification. Now, granted, it is very, very heavy-handed. We do have strategies to fight against these heavy-handed tactics. But if you're going to depend on a legal system, it's very difficult to make that happen.
I agree.
And I would like to remind everybody that I work with Oscar Michelin. His specialty is in litigation and intellectual property. Now, he's not a class action specialist, but he has talked to a number of them. And every time a class action attorney drops by to look into it, we never hear from them again. So I don't want to say it can't be done, but it's not very optimistic. You're going to have to take some responsibility. And another thing about class action lawsuits is that somebody actually has to come out. Now, I guess it's probably
yes.
you know, but you're not a victim. You're not really a victim.
I don't think so either.
No, because you didn't pay anything.
I think I'm totally fair use. Totally fair use.
Well, you didn't pay anything. I mean, you fought back, and that's that. You know, it's the people that were, you know, they're the ones that paid. And unfortunately, you know, this is going to sound really bad, but, you know, they were legally ignorant. And, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not overly religious. I consider myself spiritual. And I sort of find it ironic that I have more faith in myself and what we can do than a lot of these religious people do. I mean, don't they teach that good triumphs over evil and, you know, some of these things? I don't know. It just sort of seems interesting. Or they talk about faith. You should have faith that it works out if you're on the right side of the argument. That's what I believe. So, you know, it's sort of, I find it interesting why so many of your people are so deathly afraid. I mean, where's their faith? Where's their courage? Don't they believe, you know, in their cause? Am I wrong?
I think that from what my experience is with nonprofits and women too, is they worry a lot about what people think, and they worry a lot about their reputation. They fear that if people find out that they paid money in I agree with you, in an extortion scheme, and that's donated money, they're very fearful that their reputation will be soiled from making that payment. So, and they also feel like their reputation will be soiled if they put up a fight. So they just really are trying to keep it all quiet. They don't want people to know. So that's just the conversations that I've had with them.
Well, you know, the thing is, what's sort of scary to me in this is that you're saying that as part of the settlement, just like a little road sign on their website. I mean, that's like almost like a little sign that says, come and sue, come and get me again. I mean, I've rolled over once. I'm going to roll over again.
I know.
I mean, God, maybe I need to come after them. I mean, that's just like an advertising to come after them. I mean, they're going to roll over so easy.
There's no question that the religious community gets taken advantage of a lot. There's a lot of schemes that are directed at them, and they suffer through it. You know, one of the things that I think sad about this situation is that because of all this silence, that people don't know that they're doing anything wrong. They don't realize this exists. And it's like when the cell phone, you couldn't talk on the cell phone in your car anymore. There was a huge campaign about that before, and there's a deadline coming up, and a public awareness campaign. There's absolutely no public awareness campaign on this, and people don't know they shouldn't share. You don't find out until some jerk comes after you like this and creates all this drama and fear. If this is a real law and what I'm doing is really wrong and actionable and I'm a criminal, then it seems to me we ought to know about it. I should know about it so that I can make a choice not to do it. You think in fact, I can tell you this. If you ask anyone how much they would pay to post the Dash poem, zero. Zippo. Right. Nobody's going to pay a dime to post the Dash or any other poem. I would be willing to bet you. And you could, just with this campaign we have, Beware, Do Not Share, that little campaign alone already, I've gotten thank yous from people letting them know to take down the poem so they can avoid this drama. So my feeling is, yeah, it might cost somebody some money, and I might end up being the one who goes to court, but I'm ready. I mean, we've got someone who's already started a legal defense fund. I've got several people that have offered me homes in Atlanta. And as long as the Varsity Drive-In's there, I'll go. And I have another guy who wrote and said he'd give me his car while I'm there if I need to come. So, you know, if it's got to be me, it's got to be me. But I just think the campaign needs to start with the people who create these laws that they expect civilians to be the judge, jury, and collection agent on. I don't think so.
Well, you know, one of the statements that you made, I can't remember when you said it. I think it was one of your interviews. The copyright laws were not designed for this kind of thing. This was pre-internet. when a lot of this copyright law was written. And the criminal aspect that's discussed in the copyright law, it really is really for mass productions. I mean, people who, assemble CDs, distribute DVDs, they sell software packages on a mass scale. The mom and pops, the little organization that has a single infringement, I mean, you're not going to convince anybody in the legal community that that's a criminal matter. It's really a civil matter. It's sort of, and one of the things I said is that just because you commit a crime, like say you're speeding, let's say you speed down the highway or run a stop sign, hey, some of us have gotten breaks with a warning from a police officer. And the problem I have with the extortionists is they give almost no breaks.
None.
And for some reason, and just for the record for your viewers, because we're going to have a mixed viewer group, is I have been infringed on. And I would send an email. I would send a firm email saying, look, I want you to remove it. It was a cease and desist. I never asked for money, and you know what? They took it off. I was happy. So not every infringement requires financial compensation. It really comes from the person. I mean, for me, I just don't, all I cared about was like, look, don't copy my stuff, all right? Go make up your own stuff.
Well, I think the thing that I find fascinating about this person, Linda Ellis, is that this is a person who has an ego like no one I've ever seen. First of all, I can't remember what I was doing in 1994, 6 or 98 when all this took place for her. But I've never met anyone who really believes that anything they did in 1998 is a legacy that needs to be protected. I mean, a legacy. We're talking 204 words. We're not talking Martin Luther King here. We're not talking Maya Angelou. We're talking Linda Ellis, a sappy little bereavement poem that other people shared. If it had, I'm kind of glad that she's being taken down on the internet because no one heard of this poem until she broadcast it over the airwaves herself. Then people started passing it around for her. And they made the poem famous. No one cares about her. No one cared anything about her. It was just this poem that could be read at a funeral. And it just went from there. And people did that for her. And the thanks that they get is this? Really? I'm sorry. I just don't buy it.
Well, one of the things that I thought that you wrote that was very, very insightful, which goes to your credit as being a businesswoman, because I'm a businessman, is that a lot of artists, unknown artists, they strive to get their work out. You can't even give them away. You can't even beg people to put them on your website. And, and she stumbled onto this, and she's gotten this gift of where this thing has gone viral, and yet she wants to go sue. She's almost like trying to shrink it down, whereas everybody wants their own stuff to go viral. Does that make any sense? I mean, how many people produce videos, they want it to go viral? I mean, people pay big money for that. It's crazy.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the viral video thing because this was another thing that she did with us. I actually just made a cheesy little video about my story, and that video, thanks to I guess young men like yourself, went viral in my opinion. 11,000 hits in 4 days is pretty viral. I mean, I never even heard of this, but apparently other people had. She did a YouTube copyright strike on my content, my video, and I put a new one up in 24 hours, and that one got over 40,000 hits. Now, in 4 days, I just think it's people who, like yourself, who are involved with this that are passing it around. I don't know. I was miffed by the whole thing. She did a YouTube strike on that one. It's down. So both those videos are down. And I don't know if she's going to do another strike. I don't know what's going to happen to my YouTube channel. But this is coming from someone who believes that everything that she does is wholly right and guided by God. She must wake up in the morning with, oh my God, you answered my prayers. I can do this to this woman today. Oh, thank you, God, for this great idea of the YouTube strikes. Oh man, God, I really appreciate you showing me how to screw with this woman indefinitely. I mean, this is what I'm telling you here. It's the weirdest experience I've ever had. I can't even relate to anything about this author, her intentions, her plans, her grandiose thoughts, her ego, or those 204 words. I have to confess, I never read the poem all the way through until this happened. I just read a few lines of it and threw it up. I never read it all the way through. Now that I've read it all the way through, I probably never would have posted it. Probably never would have.
Well, I have to say, I don't think I've ever had anybody quite like you on our video updates. I mean, I think I'm usually the guy known as the mean and heavy one, but even I have to sort of just laugh at you. I mean, you really speak your mind. So I think our audience members are going to appreciate that about you, and you're very straightforward. Now. This has been so crazy. I really, just so you know, April, I think I may have mentioned to you, I really sort of like watch where my time goes, and I really was, I really felt it was an issue I wanted to talk about, and because, from where I sat, you had a lot of credibility, and I felt it was extortion. I mean, $7,500? Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't care if you cut that to $1,000. That's stupid. I mean, even $500 is outrageous. So, I mean,
$3.50. I will pay for a Hallmark card.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane to me. And I guess it just had a ring of truth only because we have dealt with so much of this. And it's insane. So when I announced that, hey, there's a brand new type of extortion called there's a poem extortionist, people were just like, what the heck are you talking about?
It's wacky. It's wacky.
It is wacky. I even told my attorney friend, Oscar Michelin, and he's like, what? So he's Googling this as we're on the phone. So I'm telling him about this, what you relayed, Dave. Hey. So at some point, I may hook you guys up, maybe the three of us.
Wonderful.
So it would be interesting to hear an attorney's perspective on this.
It would. I'd love it. Well, yeah. I have to tell you, finding extortion letter info was that was a gift. That was a gift. I didn't even pray for it, and I got it. That was a great gift. The people I've met over there in that forum are sharp, and I'm not that sharp about any of that. I know auctioneering, and I know how to raise money, but I have never been around so many wonderful minds and the support. It's nice to have support, and I think that's, if nothing else, I hope that I'm able to support people that are in my situation, and I hope others will help me spread the beware, do not share, and specifically do not share the Dash poem. If we can keep that going, you don't often hear from people you help, Matthew. You don't often hear from them. They don't have your experience or your ability to express themselves. And once again, they might be in a dire situation. And frankly, a lot of people will never go on a camera, ever. So it's important that young men like yourself and young ladies and other people who know what's going on keep supporting and sharing what they know. Keep this conversation going. It needs to keep going.
Well, what I want to say to you is you were commenting on our community. I don't know if you know this or not, but every one of our community members who are so sharp, they were a victim of an extortion letter. So I didn't know that. Yeah. Don't think that they just sort of popped out. Every one of these people were caught up in extortion letters. So, they obviously felt very passionate about it. They felt it was wrong. And everybody has dealt with it in their own way. Now, as you pointed out, there's very, very few people like us that will put our faces and names out to it. But, it's not a requirement. There's a lot of people that are just doing what they can with what they got. But they're all extortion letter victims. It's just that they got their letters not over a poem, but a low-resolution photo. And actually, that could happen to you, too, if you're not careful. So make sure, on your website, there are no images that don't belong to you or you haven't bought. or you two will join us at a different level.
I'm lucky we have a staff photographer, so I never have to use anybody else's stuff.
Excellent.
I just do think that this internet's grown in such a way where we've come from this feeling of community, strangers become friends. We share lots of stuff. There needs to be, if this law is going to be enforceable, if it's a real law, then the onus needs to be on the person who created the content, not on the person who viewed it and shared it. And there is no way for a person viewing and sharing to search copyright. One of the idiotic things this woman keeps writing to me, which I know is true, but if something's copyrighted the second it's created, without ever going to the Copyright Office, it's supposedly yours the minute you create it. There is no way on God's green earth that you can verify content belongs to someone that's never been copyrighted. And if you try to even research copyrighted content, it's really laborsome and it's very difficult to find the truth about whether something is copyrighted. It's not as easy as people think.
Right. And that's why people being fearful is being a little crazy. Now, let me ease your mind. Let's see. What was I going to ease your mind on? I lost my train of thought. I guess you were talking about the copyright registrations and so forth. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Regarding the lawsuits, we've been following this, various cases, not just stock images or poem extortions. We've been following newspaper extortions and blog extortions. We've been following this on a lot of levels. And the litigation that's coming down in the last couple of years have pointed towards judges becoming less patient with this stuff. They're really hating these kind of cases because, it's just like you're taking up all this time over such a small matter, number one. Number two,
it's ridiculous.
Even though they say it was statutory damages, in theory, judges aren't going to allow six-figure awards for, sharing a poem. This isn't going to happen. And there are actual court cases that's happened within the last couple of years that basically pan out what we have been discussing for years, or Oscar's been saying that the actual damages have to correlate to some rationale. So in your particular case, let's assume for a minute you did infringe, all right? Well, innocent infringement, in your case, it looked like it was innocent infringement. There's a cap of $200. Okay.
Oh,
plus
good. That's great to know.
Right.
That's great to know.
And even if you were willful about it, okay, again, depending on the circumstances, the judge isn't going to let this thing go to the max of six figures. There's going to be some sense of reality. Most judges aren't going to just, give an award that goes to the moon. And as you pointed out, you mentioned that Linda had a case back in 2003, which I did look over against Aronson, and she did win.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right, and I did agree with your statement. She did win, and she got a big award, but I don't think she got anything out of it because the guy was a scumbag.
I don't think she collected.
No matter how bad Linda Ellis was, he really was a thug. He was a thug and a punk, in the worst way.
I actually think that if it's the same guy, it might be the same guy that just went to prison, or he's in another thing similar last month. So yeah, he was a thug, and my guess is she didn't collect a dime, and his attorney actually asked to be severed from that case. So my thoughts are the federal court experience, if she did actually walk into a courtroom, probably wasn't that pleasant, and even though she in that case was in the right, apparently he had agreed to pay her a fee to use her poem in a book, and then he never paid her and published the book. And so that's a legitimate agreement. They had a real agreement in advance, and he broke the agreement. So I can see that.
Well, he was actually mass-producing the poem, too. Let's not us forget.
Exactly.
He took the poem and he put it in a book. He was selling books. It wasn't just like plastering up on one website or something like that. So he was really... Yeah, he was really a crook. And so if she's dumb enough to bring that case up, don't force us to...
She always brings... That's the case they brought up for me. Yeah, they brought that case up for me and said that Is that my microphone feeding back on you there a little bit? Can you hear any feedback? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. They actually told me they used that case, cited that case as a case that she won, and she won the maximum in federal court.
Well, that's because she was dealing with a thug. I mean, she was dealing with somebody else, a scum of the earth. I mean, and, you know, just for the record, I have this unfortunate, loose, distant association. A cover designer that I worked with had told me about this Dash project years ago, and I was thinking it was right. Yeah, I knew about the Dash book, but I thought I thought that when you talked about the Dash poem, that they were totally unaware. It was totally coincidental. As it turns out, I didn't realize it is connected. It is connected. Oh, wow. He stole, or whatever you want to call it, from her, if you will. And she would tell me stories how he was being a thug, and she would feel like she would have to do work for him because she didn't know what he would do to her. I mean, it was crazy, some of the stories I heard. So it's weird. Here it is. This was about 2004 time frame. Here it is 8 years later, and it's tied in. Oh, wow. It's weird. Very strange.
That is very, very strange. Well, I think if she were to step foot in federal court today with a courtroom filled with people that we could certainly subpoena to testify would be my guess. I don't know. You would know better. But if this does go all the way, I think the stories that people are going to reveal will be crushing to any sort of financial future for someone who's trying to make their living off of a poem. In fact, I have actually wanted this to go all the way. I think in one fell swoop we could wipe it off the internet, and then the poem and the harassment and all that would just be gone from the planet, and nobody would have to even deal with her again. Yeah. It's just how it works, you know.
You're really trying to put her into the ground, it sounds like.
Well, you know, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. I just can't still get my mind around it. So if this is the way the game's going to be played, I'm playing it out to the very end, whatever that is. She still has on her website this, like if it were printed out, probably 3 pages of derogatory comments about me. Now, really, you really want this to go away? I don't think you want it to go away if you're still doing this. You're still filing copyright strikes on people. You really want us to go away? This is not how you get people to go away. You don't get people to go away by harassing them.
All right, let me play devil's advocate here, okay? So don't pin me to the wall. Because this thing has escalated between the both of you, you know, and believe me, I mean, just so you know, I mean, I get where you're coming from. Otherwise, you and I would not be on camera together. Okay, so let's say in a very strange way, she decided she was going to apologize to you. She was going to stop. Would that change your opinion or change your actions? I mean, is there anything that she could do to sort of like down this? I mean, because I see you spending a ton of time doing this, and I'm not far be it for me to tell you not to do it, but see, this is one of these circumstances. I actually think there's a small possibility that this extortion stuff could go away versus some of these big companies. I mean, it's hard to change these big companies. Is there anything that she could do? Let's say she said, I see your point. Look, I shouldn't have come after you. I shouldn't have said these mean things to you. Will you just let this go?
Well, for me personally, I really haven't been damaged at all. So for me personally, or with my clients or my business, I haven't been damaged at all. It's actually been a very interesting journey. I've had a lot of laughs. You know, your forum's hysterical, by the way. I've had a lot of laughs. I've learned a lot about technology. There's an upside to everything that's happened here. There's things I never knew before. I cleaned up all kinds of things on my computer just to be prepared for the next onslaught of attacks. I've learned about things I wouldn't have learned before. So in terms of me to this point, there's been no downside. I really spend about an hour a day. You know, I write the stuff, I put it up, or we do copyright, what we call copyright prevention strikes, where we go online and find people that this has been posted and we send them warnings. And that's very rewarding. So, you know, just a little glass of Merlot and hour of my computer. That's about all I do. Okay. But in terms of her, as long as she keeps that kind of content up about me and she posts Facebook's posts about me.
That's what I meant. If she took it down, it would be so easy. As long as she keeps that up. It would be so easy for her to take it down.
Right now, I think for me, I am fine with if things just stop where they are. I'm not going to stop being involved with you guys or anyone else who's in my position. If she goes after somebody else, I'm here to support them. If she stops going after me, I will leave her alone. I will never speak her name again. I will talk about beware, do not share. But if she keeps rearing her ugly head and going after people, I really can't get out of the fight because she's keeping it going by going after other people. Now, if I have to be by myself, I'm fine. I don't need one other person. I can plug along. But the fact that we've created a place for a safe haven for people, a place of information for people, a way for them to fight back, or to ignore, or to do whatever they want to do, or to pay if they really want that damn poem on their website. But if that's the case, you know, the internet's this stuff's out there now. Other people it's been out of my hands now for about 5 weeks. Other people have taken my videos and posted them. Other people have taken my content and put it everywhere. So I'm basically out of the head-to-head fight. I'm not really in a head-to-head fight with her anymore. I'd like to get my YouTube channel back. But as long as she keeps those copyright strikes up, I'm going to keep fighting back. As long as she keeps coming after me, I'm going to keep fighting back. That's it.
Well,
I'm not going to just lay down.
No. I didn't mean it that way. I was just looking at the possibility if she would ever back off. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I find her to be very interesting, I guess. I don't think, you know, I've dealt with some different people, and she's just sort of a different animal. And I don't know. I think she seems so misguided, or she just doesn't get it for some reason. And I don't know. I just thought I'd feel you out to see if she miraculously decided to apologize and take all the stuff down and sort of make a good faith effort. That if you,
I think I think what she's revealed by what she's doing is that she does not want to go to court. She doesn't have an attorney that's by her side, because after those Right Haven cases where the people were allowed to sue the attorney. So I think that she's not taking anyone's advice. I don't have an attorney. If I had an attorney, do you think I could get away with any of this? My attorney would be like on me. You can't. Attorneys don't let you do what I'm doing. I'm by myself. I don't have legal representation. I will not get legal representation until I really have to, and I will never respond to anything by email. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, you don't need it up until a certain point. Now, I do want to address a couple of things to alleviate, since we're going to have a mixed audience here. And one of the things that I've been saying for the last couple of years is stop being so afraid of a lawsuit. People always think that, okay, if a lawsuit ends up on your doorstep, you can't do anything. Well, I always tell people one of the things that you can do to sort of equalize the fight, when someone files a lawsuit against you, you are able to file a countersuit. That opens that door. It's not a one-way street. Right. Okay? But the person has to first, number one, understand they have that ability. Number two, they have to be willing to pull that trigger. And I will tell you that there's a case against Hawaiian Art Network, one of these stock photo extortionists. Someone did take up on our advice. And the minute a countersuit is filed against the original plaintiff, they can't just simply say, oh, I'm going to drop my end so I can get out of the countersuit. It's too late. Does that make any sense? So
yes, it does. I love the sound of that.
It's always a risk if you're going to file a lawsuit. The countersuit is a way to fight back against those frivolous lawsuits. So And
I have a question. Maybe you can answer this. When people attach this ridiculous value to an object, a poem, or whatever, like she has with this poem, as part of a counter lawsuit, is it possible to? I've been told this, so I want to make sure it's true. Is it possible to get their financial records to prove what they've actually made off of selling the poem versus doing copyright infringement fees? And a tax and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, anything is possible. I mean, I'm obviously not a lawyer, but I spent a lot of time with Oscar Michelin, and the majority of cases get settled out because it's so darn expensive to go all the way, number one. Number two, relying on a judge on your fate sometimes is a risky business. So settling gives both parties a way out. So I don't know if that answers your question. You do have I'm not an expert, but if it gets to a certain point and you feel it's relevant to your case, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to ask for it. And
that's what we're thinking. I think that if someone's claiming something has a certain value, and if I say I sell my records for $5 every day, but if you play my record without permission, now it's worth $500,000, then that's an unreasonable concept because you've never ever sold anything for $500,000, right? You've only sold it for $5. Correct. And the most expensive thing that she has on her website is $79 for a cheesy plaque, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. You can't just make up a number and say that's the value, because that's what a lot of the stock photo companies do. They're artificially inflating those numbers on their own websites. But if you really looked on the internet, the true market values are much lower.
Exactly.
So you're right. I mean, the market value for displaying the poem and all that is fundamentally very low, I got to say.
The other part of what you're talking about, too, in terms of settlement, if I were to settle, if I say we do go to court and I were to settle, again, as part of that settlement, you are going to sign a confidentiality agreement. And then now I'm part of the problem again. Don't you think it's time for this to be decided in a court that, look, this is not what the law was designed for. This is not a fair practice, or it could come my way and it could cost me $150,000. But I'm just saying, shouldn't it go all the way?
Well, I always tell people, if you've got the money for it and you've got the stomach for it. Now, not all settlements agreements have to be confidential. It's just normally that way. You don't have to agree to it. You can say, I want to settle, but I want to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I have to talk about it.
So there you go.
Well, I'm all about freedom of speech, buddy.
Yeah,
freedom of speech.
I got you. Now, there's a couple other remedies I do want to throw out there, and I did talk about in the last video, but I do want to bring it up, and you could actually address me on it. Is that, John Jolin, I'm looking into whether, and you could start looking at it, is he doing activities that's outside the bounds of what he should be doing? Is it practicing law? Because if that's the case, he's going to be in big trouble. So that's an area
I love that angle.
Okay, so if he's practicing law, okay, he's doing work for Linda Ellis, but is it crossing over to what lawyers would do? I don't know enough about it. So that's just something for you to think about. And and if that's the case, you can report him to the state bar. The other part is, and what a lot of people don't know, and this is what a lot of people have been starting to do, is that these extortionists have been getting away with murder. This is something that your people who have already settled can do. They can file a letter of complaint to the Georgia Attorney General and explain to them.
That's great.
Okay, now, I'm not going to promise the moon in that they will do anything, but I promise you, anybody who gives a damn about their reputation is not going to want a complaint going to the Attorney General. The reason being is that Attorney General complaints are a matter of public record. So,
right.
So if you decide to continue on with this campaign, you could once a month, in theory, call the Georgia Attorney General and say, look, I want all complaints on Linda's lyrics or John Jolin or whatever the case may be. If those complaints start coming in, I'm telling you, she's in the Atlanta area, but the Attorney General's in the Atlanta area. They're not very far away. All right?
Right, yeah.
So there are ways to do it. And I tell you, we've beat back some lawyers They don't like state bar complaints. They don't like attorney general complaints. And a lot of them have changed their ways. They don't ever admit it to it, but we've noticed this trend where they're just a lot nicer now. Their letters used to be so heavy-handed, like you said, $150,000 nonsense, and you could go to, it's a criminal. A lot of that's gone away. And it's because there have been people that have been submitting these complaints. So you say your people may never get their money back, but it's not too late for them to file a complaint with the Attorney General. But again, don't make up a complaint. I don't subscribe to that. You're only hurting the cause, and you have to be able to sign your name to it. So
yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
Well, I think you're giving really good advice. The thing is, people don't know what to do, and it's great. When you've been taken advantage of, or you've been called these incredible names. I mean, honestly, if this is a crime, this is the crime to commit, because there's no shame in it, and everybody else is committing it by the second.
Yeah, it's a civil issue. That's what people need to understand. It's not like criminal, like a misdemeanor or a felony where you go to jail. Okay, this is a civil matter. And
well, I'll tell you, I'd rather go to jail than give her a dime. I wish I could go to jail and give me time to write, But I think it's the wildest thing if someone can get away with what she's doing, this law, if this is allowed to stand this way and people are allowed to behave this way, the law is allowing this kind of sort of scourge to exist. And unless it's exposed from one person to another, like you're doing it, like I'm doing it, and we get other people to do it, then you're going to be aware. There's nobody who will ever send any money to the Nigerian dude. He's not going to get any money over in the United States, because we all know about it, right?
Not all, but there's some stupid people out there. There's always a sucker out there.
Every minute.
But yes, there are. You can't save the world.
You can't.
Although I shouldn't say that to you. You are trying.
Beware, do not share.
Okay. No, I thought that was a very good slogan. Okay, the one thing I do want to clarify is you are much more ingratiating and taking on this cause, so do you still welcome phone calls, or what's your position?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I don't.
I had to turn my phone off. It's ringing right now. It's been ringing right now, and it's from Jupiter, Florida. So someone's calling me from Florida. I have no clients there. So
you know who Jupiter, Florida is? That's probably Robert Krasankis. He's a member of the team. He did say he was going to come.
That was a great interview you did with him. That was a great interview. Well, and it's like that. I don't get a lot of calls. It's usually like one call every day, and then one day it'll be 3, and then nothing for a couple of days. So I think in the beginning, when there was just a few press releases, I didn't have the blog. Now people go to the blog, and I see the hits. And my blog gets anywhere, I don't know, it averages about 220, and one day it hit 1,000. I don't know what happened that day, but it hit 1,000. So, and it's just about the copyright stuff. So I think I get fewer calls now because they can find information.
Okay, one more
the media is the next calls them. Okay,
I think you're going to like this one. Oscar and I have already talked about it, that if anybody gets any more extortion letters from Linda, if they want legal representation, Oscar is willing to take that on without an hourly fee. Because what we have is what we call a defense letter program. Like for Getty Image victims, there's a lot of people who don't want to do the research. They don't want to reply. They don't want to go through all the stuff that you're willing to go through. What they do is they hire Oscar for $200, and he handles everything. He picks up the case.
Deal.
Yes, and you know what? It's immensely popular. So we always tell people, look, you can defend yourself against these extortion letters, but if you just don't want to be bothered by the learning, you just don't want to have to talk to them anymore, you want to get them off your back, that's what we do. And I'm going to forward you the link so you can sort of see what we've done about it, and you can pass it on.
Perfect. I've got a few people right now that are going to jump on that. Okay. There's actually a few authors that are being sued by her.
Oh, really? They're in the process?
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to love that.
Yeah.
They're going to love
They're going to love that. So I'll make sure that they get that information.
Okay. All right. Any other words before we go? I mean, I'm sure we're going to do another video at some point.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. This has been fun. Do you have any last parting words or comments for our audience?
I think it's important for people to share with their story with you, and I think that not the poem. I think
share the story, not the poem.
Well, Extortion Letter Info is the best resource I've found so far for support. So I think people should go there. My blog, I'm just basically talking about my situation and just keeping that story alive. But I really like that. And then also, I want to encourage people to actually make a donation to Extortion Letter Info, because I found that button the other day, and I did. I think it's important that you are supported and that you're not working for free, because this is saving people a lot of suffering. You don't think it's a big deal because you're not necessarily hearing from them, but I hear from people, and I know that what you're doing is very honorable, and I commend you, and I commend you for finding me and allowing me to be on the show. I really feel good about being able to talk about it.
Actually, it was your Twitter account. I didn't find you. I don't know what you were doing with the Twitter. Well, somehow you got
I don't know what I'm doing with Twitter either.
That's how I got this little notification that says something from Innocent Infringer or something like that, and it's like, what is this? What is this account?
Well, I never knew to search. I never knew to search the word copyright troll. And when I started learning that opened up my world, because I did not know that this was a practice. I didn't even know what a copyright troll was. It took me a long time to put that together. And that, once you start searching copyright troll, it opens up the whole world of what this scheme's all about.
Well, just so you know, on one of your blog entries, you listed us, Eli. You don't have to say Extortion Letter. You can say Eli. Most people know. But you listed Fight Copyright Trolls, where we're we're in contact with them behind the scenes. So they recommend us. I recommend them. And
that's another really great site. Yeah, that's another great site.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, April. I mean, it's really been great actually seeing you on camera and talking to you. We spent so much time on the phone and email, so.
I know. All right. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate the interview.
All right. On behalf of our April and myself, we hope you've enjoyed this interview, and give us some of your feedback, and if you love it, we will make arrangements to do another interview for you. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.